Well, good day to you. Thank you for dropping by. My name is the Old Gardener. I've been gardening for more than 75 years, and I thoroughly enjoy it. In that time, I've worked for major magazines. I have been a publisher of a magazine. I enjoy gardening, and I've accumulated a lot of tips and hacks and things that I feel like I could pass on to you. But I'm going to ask you to please like the program. This is kind of a new venture for me. And subscribe if you would, because we'll have these tips and shortcuts and gardening experiments and everything going on for as long as I can. But here to start with, I want to share with you a tip that is that I find to be one of the favorites when I'm doing talks and visiting schools and everything. You know, an old paper egg carton like this is an extremely good thing to start plants in the spring. Just separate the top from the carton itself. The top is very important because you're going to line that with some tin foil. Now, the reason you're doing this is to make yourself a great little planter. I have found that it works just as good as peat pots because this paper is biodegradable. It breaks down within a few days after putting potting soil in it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What I like to do is I like to use the non-stick tin foil or aluminum foil. Okay, a foil, and then I use that as a reservoir for moisture and water in here. Okay, then I place this back on top of it. Then I fill this carton with good potting soil. You want to have a good sterilized potting soil that is going to keep you from getting damp off and all kinds of problems when you start planting your seeds. Now, this little nice flap, you can write the date and the variety of seeds you've planted and any other information that you want to put on there. I usually drop, depending on the seed, a couple of seeds into each one of these: tomatoes, peppers, squash, things like that. And they sit right on the windowsill. Perfect, because the windowsill is just about the same exact width as this. The sunlight comes in, warms it, and then it directs, it gets the energy that it needs to grow. And once the plants get up about, an inch tall, they might start leaning towards the sun. And to correct that, just turn this planter around. It goes from an egg carton to a planter. Okay. I got another one I want to show you here that I think you'll get some use out of. This is just the old-fashioned plastic ice trays. They've been around 20, 30, 40 years. But this time of the year, right now, it's beginning to be the fall of the year. And you'll have a lot of herbs to harvest. Sweet basil, rosemary, sage, thyme, garlic, those things, okay? And as you harvest them, this is something that I have found to be very useful. I will take the herbs and put them, on a chopping block and chop them up as finely as I can with my shelf knife. And then I'll pack them in these little individual trays here, these little individual spots. And then I'll come in and pour olive oil in to fill them. I'll stick this into the refrigerator, the freezer, freeze this, and then, 2 hours later, 3 hours later, I'll take a Ziploc plastic bag, pop them out, and dump them in there. Now, what you have, and you can mark these plastic bags if you want to, sweet basil, sage, or a blend, Italian blend. What I do is the Italian blend. I put the sweet basil, rosemary, all together, thyme, and then I know that when I get ready to make spaghetti or make a pizza, all I have to do is go to that plastic bag, pick up 1 cube or 2 cubes, depending on how much I'm making, or 3 or 4, and drop them into the pot with my tomatoes, stew them down, and then I've got tomato sauce, I've got marinara sauce, whatever I'm making, but I've got the fresh herbs already in a bag, and it's very easy to use. And you know, let me tell you this, back to this egg carton thing. You know, this little hack right here is great for early school, you know, from first grade, kindergarten, all the way up to second, third grade. And kids love it. You can have them bring their own egg carton, you can put their name on it. It's something that they can do, and they can take it home and plant it in their garden. Another thing that I find to be helpful are these old plastic cups. You know, I was a pastor for 26 years, and I would save these plastic cups, rinse them off, of course. And the neat thing about these plastic cups, they can last a long time. They also come in designer colors. You know, any colors you can imagine, they come in. But, you know, why am I sharing this with you? Okay, here's the reason. If I'm spreading mulch or spraying something that I don't want to come in contact with my new plants, I will cover my plants with these cups. And then I can spread my mulch without knocking the plant over, and then when I pick it up, it automatically has the right, you know, the mulch comes up right up close to it. And how much mulch do I use? Well, pine bark, things like that. Maybe 2, 3, 4 inches in the garden, okay? Hay, straw, all of that's good, especially if it's well rotted. But you're using some type of herbicide, and you want to cover your plants, and you're spraying, okay? And as you spray, now you're keeping the spray off of your plants. And you've got the size and everything that you need to do it with. And it's easy and a safer way of doing things. Water bottles, everybody has them around, and you can, some states recycle them. Where I live, I don't think they do recycle them. But here's one of the things I wanted to show you. If you're looking for a quick funnel, you can take the top of a water bottle, cut it off, and then you have this funnel that you can put down into a fuel tank or a chainsaw to put oil in it, or whatever you might be needing it for. You've got a funnel, and it's disposable on top of that. And you've got another container here you can use for something else. Another thing that I thought was going to be useful is that this this mouthwash bottle top is very hard plastic. And the neat thing about it is, once you take the cap off, it's got ridges. This funnel goes way down into a fuel tank. If you're afraid filling a fuel tank, it won't fall out, it won't fall over, and you can use it as a real friend. But you know, you probably need to get you an appropriate funnel. These are only for emergencies. Don't reuse these, and you know, to fill fuel into your lawnmowers and things. Get yourself a real funnel for that. All right. Some other things that I wanted to show you, and that's this. And of course, this is the other half of that mouthwash. This is a tomato plant that was a volunteer, because the tomatoes have already finished. But I wanted to show you this. We plant our tomatoes by laying them down. Now, we'll put them no deeper than about 5 inches. Tomatoes like warm soil, and they're about this deep into the ground, okay? And when you fertilize, when you water gets to it immediately, okay? You don't have to wait 2 or 3 days. If you put it in a deep hole and it's 8, 10 inches deep, Lord knows how long it takes the fertilizer to get there. But this is another thing. When you put them in a trench, they develop roots all up and down the stem. The stem will turn up. Tomatoes are very flexible. Turn up and point towards the sun. But at the point, whoop, I dropped my fork. Let me get it. At the point where it comes through the soil, I wrap my tomato plants with tin foil, kind of loosely, but I wrap them like that. Now, if you can imagine, a soil is coming through here. This protects them from cutworms. It's peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, almost any plant, cabbage, things like that, collards, all that you can plant from plants. And it protects them from cutworms, aphids, and other things that might climb up it. Also, it actually protects from stem-borne and root-borne diseases to a great extent. And it's an easy thing to do. Just wrap it with that non-stick tin foil that I found, or aluminum foil, a foil, and it really does a good job in keeping. You won't lose any more plants to cutworms, and that's an aggravating thing to do, to walk out in your yard or your garden and see where cutworms have attacked everything. Now, speaking of natural remedies, I want to show you this. This is a ball of twine I need to straighten out, but this is nylon. Now, I grow all pole beans. I love pole beans because I don't have to bend over. I'm getting too old to get down on my hands and knees and pick regular beans, bush beans. But I put these pole beans up, and then I'll string string. One year I used this nylon thinking I was doing a really good thing, and I found out the nylon is almost like Teflon. Plants like cucumbers and squash and beans climb up it, and it's so smooth and so slick that they'll slide back down. And they spend a lot of energy climbing and sliding back down. And if you've ever grown pole beans or cucumbers, you know sometimes you have to give them a little help to help them up the lattice work that you have given them to climb. So what I have found over the years is, if you'll use a natural fiber like a jute or cotton kite string, these are excellent. And by the end of the year, they have deteriorated, and when you go to clean up your garden, you can throw all that into the compost, and next year they will have dissolved and they're not even there. Where the nylon is going to be around for years and years and years to tangle up in your tiller, your lawnmower, and every other thing. But I like this, the natural fiber, because it is an easy climber asset for the beans to climb, and the cucumbers, they climb it very quickly. Now here's something that you may have seen or may not, but it's just an easy thing to do. This is a Velcro type of, if you are trying to train your tomatoes, or you're trying to clip cucumbers to a trellis or something, this is a Velcro type of retainer. And all you have to do is cut it off in the desired length, and it sticks. And it holds extremely well. I like it enough that I buy it every time I see it and hang on to it for my garden. Here's something else that you might want to consider. This is what I would call a Vienna sausage can. I don't know what the exact name is, but these little short sausages come in it. And you know, they're great for snacks, but we operate a small farm, and we give all the produce. It's a non-profit type farm, and we give all the produce to the food banks in our county. And as such, we have a lot of volunteers from different churches come out. Some of them are gardeners, and some of them don't have a clue, and you know, all they know is green side up. So we encourage them. This is the right amount of fertilizer. This one scoop is what I would use in an area that I was going to grow my peppers, my tomatoes, my cucumbers, my squash. And so I have them spread it all over the whole area. Not putting it in one spot, but sprinkle it all over the entire area. And then we till it up with a spade or shovel and work it into the soil so it won't burn the roots, because we want the roots of that seed to develop into a plant, and then to develop into a vegetable, and for the roots to go far out into the soil. And that fertilizer draws them out into the soil around them. And the fertilizer, because it's a salt, also encourages moisture to build up in the soil and bacteria. It's a good thing. So a lot of the volunteers don't like getting the fertilizer on the hands, and I don't blame them. So what I have done is I have started attaching handles to these little containers so they can just dip it in and sprinkle it out. Go right into the bag or to the bucket that we've got the fertilizer in and sprinkle it out. And all we've done is I just find a limb that's constantly falling, and I stick it to this little container. And to hold it on there, they make a plastic steel that comes in a stick, and it comes in a little extruded tube, and you just break it off, knead it between your thumb and your finger for a few minutes. It has a drying time of less than an hour, and you put it on this and on the end of the handle, and you shove it together, hold it for a few moments, and then just set it aside. You come back an hour, 2 hours, the next day when you remember it, and you've got a dipper for the fertilizer or for whatever you need or want. We have chickens. We raise chickens. And one of the things that you have to do when you're raising chickens is you have to give them a calcium supplement. And we use ground oyster shells. And this is the exact amount of oyster shells that I dump into my chicken feed on a daily basis. So 1 cup, to the gallons of chicken feed, stir it up, and it works very well. And here's the thing about plants and gardens. There are people who have green thumbs, and people think they're great gardeners, but the secret to being a good gardener primarily is to be consistent. Plants only need 3 or 4 things. They need decent soil, they need water, they need sunlight, and they need to be weeded and loved and cared for. And then, consistency is the thing. If you're going to fertilize, be consistent. Be consistent with your water, and analyze the plant. Think about what their needs are. Don't overdo it, but remember this. If you overdo it, you're going to get a lot less production, because plants that bear fruit, like tomatoes, eggplants, okra, bell peppers, hot peppers, when they have too much fertilizer, they don't produce fruit. You'll get less tomatoes and less bell peppers if you over fertilize. So cut back on the fertilizer, and guess what happens? It's where my Bible training kicks in. God gave us these plants, and He told them to multiply and to grow from seeds. The easiest way to get seeds is to make the plant think that it's a little bit under-fertilized, and for its own survival and for its own abilities that are God-given, the plant will produce more fruit. If the tomato plant or pepper plant is a little bit on the weak side of fertilizer, you're going to get a lot more tomatoes, because what it's trying to do is to produce seeds so that it can replenish and regrow its own kind. So if you want a lot more fruit, a lot more peppers, a lot more okra, eggplants, keep it a little bit under fertilized, and you'll start to see. Now you're going to have to experiment and see how much under you need to be. If the plants and the leaves start to turn yellow and those things and look anemic, increase the fertilizer. That's what you need to do. Here's something else I wanted to show you. Sometimes I make my own homemade insecticide or pesticide. I found this the other day. This is an alcohol rub for arthritis, and it has Epsom salts in it. Now, I'm going to use this. I'm going to put about a half a cup of this into a gallon sprayer with a little bit of hand soap. It has to be soap. It can't be detergent. A little bit, maybe a teaspoon of soap, and that together. and I'll go out and spray my plants up under the leaves. That's where the aphids and the whiteflies hide. And as that hits them, it will eliminate them. And then an hour, 45 minutes later, I come back with a garden hose and wash it off. All the whiteflies, all the aphids are disposed of. Yeah, it does require a little time, but look, gardening for me is a hobby. It's something that I just have been called to do. It's kind of like being in the ministry. It's something you can't deny, and I enjoy doing it because the end result is we give the produce away to people who can use it. We give turnips, mustard greens, kale, bell peppers, tomatoes, hot peppers, okra. Oh, I mean, we just enjoy ourselves giving away. My last tip here for you, and this is about hydrogen peroxide. If by any chance you overwater your house plants or your seedlings, here's something that you can do. Don't overdo this, but hydrogen peroxide has an extra molecule of oxygen, and you can take a couple of tablespoons of hydrogen peroxide, put it in a quart of water, and apply it to your house plants and to your seedlings. Not only is it sterilizer, but it also adds another molecule of oxygen to the soil that will do away with bacteria and diseases that are soil bound. It's an easy way to solving a lot of problems. You know, experiment with it, do your own research, and think about what you're doing. God bless you. I thank you for spending your time watching. We're going to have a whole lot of these tips and things going on. I want to ask you to like and to subscribe if you would. And remember, it's Jim Bennett, the old gardener. Well, I've got to go cut some fields or some pastures, and I'll see you right back here with one of my other shows. All right, again, God bless you. Be safe. You know, all of us can do something to make America a better place. This is not a political announcement. I don't care who you vote for or who you support, but when you're doing things from the heart, the way they're supposed to be done, and you go to your place of worship when you have worship service, you do your devotionals, you pay attention to how our Creator leads you, this will be a better place. Again, God bless you. See you. Drop in anytime. I'm always here.